I'll be we'll give the second half today. Just generally, this is so far will be where we will meet. We used to meet in the youth lounge, but the youth lounge now is under construction because of the beautiful project that we have at St. Ignatius. So thank God, God gave us this place. We have our equipment, we're able to be online and all. We'll add power bars on the side in case you want to bring in your laptops, because you will be taking notes, you will be doing group work and all that. So this will be our place to meet. We will start 2:50 every week with prayer, and then 3 o'clock we'll start the lecturing and the discussion and all that. The way we do this is we lecture a little bit, we open discussions, we divide it in groups because your attendance is mandatory. So being here in person, for those of you who are here, it will save you a lot of work that you don't have to do later. So your attendance counts towards the progression of your course and the progression in your program because it involves group work, it involves case-based study. So we do case-based learning. So we give you a case and we ask you to work through it. There's also some cases online, but if you do the one here, you don't have to post anything online. Every course is 5 weeks. Keep in mind that all statutory holidays or special holidays are taken off. So for example, next week is Thanksgiving, we don't have class. And the week after, we're back, and we'll go for another 4 lectures or four times. It's from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. with a bit of a break in the middle, and we give you refreshments, coffee, and donuts, and some very nice stuff. And feel free to bring anything if you want for the group. It's up to you, but we take care of that. Our service take care of that. So it's 3 to 6 with a break in the middle, and usually what ends up happening is if for any reason you're not able to attend, but let's say for a legitimate reason, you have to clear this up with the coordinator of the program. The coordinator of the program here is Ayman, is right here, okay? And online, the one who coordinates the studying online is Mimi Saleh. And she's part of the WhatsApp group that was open. Ayman is part of it. All of us are part of it. All of us who are instructing, non-instructors, all of us who are administrating the program work on it. So you can easily get our numbers and send us any questions you have. Do not mute YMCP WhatsApp. We're not gonna inundate you with messages, but they will be whenever we send something, it's important. Other than that, we have actually another WhatsApp for servants to discuss other stuff. So we're not really loading you with anything else. Here, I was talking about the donuts and the coffee, and here it is. And we can have it at the back. We can have it at the back. It's always good, right? So welcoming you to YMCP 2025. We know the place, we know the time, we know the WhatsApp group, and we know the attendance. The maximum you would be able to miss a course out of 5 lectures is 2. If you miss more than 2, you're out of the program. That's how it is. So if you have a legitimate reason not to be here in person, you can let Ayman know, and he will give you access to the recording online. So for example, we all have Moodle, we all have done the personality test online, and you've all signed up. So looking, for example, at last year's, you'll see, for example, session 1, there is a recording. So if you click on the recording, this is me last year. Huh? Did I go slimmer? So this is me last year. You'll be able to attend the lecture online. What's that? If you're not available now? No, because we were recording. Yeah, so we don't give you the recording from last year. We don't do that yet. It's a good question. Let me go back there and register myself. You all have access to your login credentials. Everyone here has access? So that will be a recording of the session, and then you will have a link to the presentation. So you will see, if you click on my link here, it will open up the presentation slides. So you can go over everything we went over here online, again, if you want to, or if you are not here for legitimate reasons. Maximum 2 times out of the 5 times per course, but those 2 times you're not here, you will have to do an online post. And those will be, so if you look up, for example, here, adolescent development case study. When you actually open up the link, it will give you a case, and you have to work that case on your own. Or you can work it with someone else. It's really up to you. This is adult learning, so this is considered to be a post-grad type of level of learning. Okay, so a lot of it is self-directed. It's on your own. You put the time in it, but also you'll find that there's some accountability in terms of attendance. And if for a legitimate reason, like I said, you're not able to be here, you have to clear it with Ivan first. And then that week, you have to go online, watch the lecture, which will be posted maximum Tuesday of every week. So we do it live, and then we take the recording, we edit the recording, and we post it on Moodle, the way I showed you, by Tuesday. And you watch the recording, and then you write a post, only 200 words, but it has to be a reflective post on the lecture. So it has to show that you actually watched the lecture and have done the reading material, so in order to write something meaningful. And after you do your initial post, you either reply to someone's post, or if not, you write a second post, and that's it. So 2 posts, either one initial, one reply, or 2 posts if there is no one to reply to. Because you could be, let's say, the only one online. But in this year, I believe there are at least 3 people from Calgary will be on. Any questions so far on what is required, what is asked? Generally speaking, I'll go specific in the course, but generally speaking, good. Okay. Also on Moodle, you will see if there's any PowerPoints, and if it's only FYI, that means just for you, if you like to go through it, it's not necessary, it's not mandatory, but it'll help you in increasing your knowledge about the topic. Or it will help you as you're doing the reading of the chapters. And then, okay, there's PowerPoint slide here as well, every week, so that's second session with the date and the presentation link, the PowerPoints. This one here is a case study on alcohol use and abuse, so and so on and so forth, where people can write, there's, for example, here, someone posted. So that's from last time. Okay, so you will also receive an updated version of the calendar for the year. Now that could change here and there, but it's pretty much what will happen for the year. So you have a years ahead of when the courses will be, because one of the courses we offer is offered on a weekend only. This is the one on adolescent apologetics, or apologetics for adolescent ministry. And the reason why we do it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, one weekend, rather than coming for 5 weeks, is because our lecturer is George Basilius. And George Basilius comes to us specifically from, I think he comes from San Francisco, somewhere there. So he flies in, he gives the course on the weekend, and then he flies back and has other responsibilities in his ministry and so on and so forth. And that's why that's the one course you will do it over a weekend. And it's in February, we already know the dates, and it's set because we already bought him his flights and all. Unless an emergency happens, that's when everything will be, and you'll have a calendar clearly showing when the courses will be. Is that helpful for you? I know you have to manage your time as well. In terms of what is asked of you, how can you complete the courses? How can you complete this program? This program is made of 5 courses, and those 5 courses and a practical. So the 5 courses are, the first one is adolescent development and pastoral care. This is where you will learn about the social, psychological, spiritual, biological development of an adolescent. So there's a lot of learning. Some of you may already studied that if you've done psychology. So it will be a nice refresher focused on adolescence. And part of that course is counseling. So how do we counsel? How do we talk to? How do we engage in conversation with youth? And what is youth? What are youth? Like what age are we talking about? How can we handle when they have a breakup and therefore they're going through a bit of a distress? Guess what? Youth do breakups and they get hurt because of it and so on. What do we do with self-image when they are struggling with their self-image? How about if they have anxiety? What do we do if they are addicted or headed towards addiction, whether it be pornography or alcohol and so on and so forth, substance in general? So we'll give you these cases and we'll walk alongside you with skills of counseling as well as how to handle specific cases like the ones I mentioned now. And for that course, the way you will be, you can pass that course is number one, attendance. Number two, reading the books. We have 2 books per course. They're very easy read, by the way. So when I say book, don't be overwhelmed. They're easy read. And they get you to reflect even on your own adolescent time. It's a good, like everyone who's taken this course ranks the readings very high. It's good reading. Attendance, reading. The reading will take you 1 hour per week. If you sit down to actually read, there are 4 chapters, but they're small chapters. They'll take you 1 hour, maybe an hour and a half if you're a bit of a slow reader and you want to reflect more and more. An hour and a half of reading. And being in class, why attendance is part of you passing or finishing up the course is because of the case studies and the group work that we do here, and you get participation marks for that, and they are pretty high. They're 50%. Okay, and then reading, so that's the other 25%. And the last 25% you actually do a counseling session. So we'll divide you up into groups of 3s, and one will be the servants, one will be the youth, and the third one will be an observer. And there will be criteria that you will self-assess, and the observer will assess you. And then you switch. You will become the youth, and you'll be given scenarios to play, and so be easy on each other. Don't be too tough. But in that deliverable, we're looking for application of skills. Are you applying the skills you learned in this course? So that's it. Attendance, reading, and that final, groups of 3 practice of counseling skills. That's course number 1. Course number 2 will be leadership and management, also 5 weeks. And then course number 3 will be curriculum design and activity planning. That will also be about 5 weeks. Sometimes some of the instructors, they may add a day or take out a day if they're able to finish up their material. So you might get that. Between one course and the other, you will have 1 or 2 weeks off in order to catch up on the readings. We're trying to make this a learning experience, not a school stress, anxiety added experience to you. So that's why we add a week or 2 between courses to help you catch up. Are you thankful for that? Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm thankful too. So that's first course is adolescent development and pastoral care. The second one is leadership and management in adolescent ministry. The third course is curriculum design and activity planning. The fourth course will be youth. So the third course will be apologetics. The fourth course will be, I'm just trying to think of the dates of the time. This is the first, the second one is leadership and management. The next one in January, February will be the apologetic one for the weekend. And then we'll do curriculum design and activity planning. And then there is another course on communication to youth. This one you will learn culture and the components of youth culture. And how then do we evangelize and speak to youth and speak things they can understand. So you will be taught preaching and communication in that course. So how many courses I mentioned so far? Five? Okay, this is the second course. But it's not really a formal course like this. You have one lecture at the beginning, and you're divided up in group. It's group-based learning. You're given a book called Purpose-Driven Youth Ministry by Doug Fields, and in your groups, you will be given instructions as to what questions you need to answer as you're reading the book. And at the end, you take everything you learned in that book and you present your project. And your project is either a youth ministry from scratch or a programming a youth ministry. And I'm going to tell you this, I come here when you're done the project, that course, which is group-based, you don't come for lectures, you kind of do things virtually or you meet on your own, but then we set a date for you to come and do your final presentation on your project. You are presenting a youth ministry solution, either be a youth ministry from scratch, like I said, or a certain programming based on the learning you have acquired in reading the book as a group. I sit myself and Arseni and sometimes Ayman or Nini, we sit and we evaluate your presentation, we give you the rubrics, we tell you what we're looking for. But the exciting thing is your project, many of the projects that have been presented actually have been implemented in ministry. So you actually get to see your work and what you put together in the ministry happening. So those are the five courses. Six, right? The seventh component is a practicum. And the practicum is placing you for 2 months in an organized or regulated hands-on experience in youth ministry. And this usually happens in high school ministry here, but it can also happen in any church you're coming from. So if you're, let's say, you have a church in the West, we can train your supervisor or your trainer in the youth ministry. We offer them workshops, one-day workshop. They get trained, they receive all the material they need, they know how the rotations will happen, and they can offer you this in your church. So we offered this in Archangel Michael and Sant'Agata. We've offered this in, I believe, also the St. Catherine's Church, and here at the MSO. You're more than welcome to do the rotation here if you prefer. It's all open to you. Any questions so far? Yeah, we're good. Let me now get into today's course. Today we start adolescent development and pastoral care, and you can read the syllabus just to highlight that you will learn developmental. It's on. You cannot hear me online. So everything I said was not heard online.
It's heard. It's just heard.
Is the recording clear? Can you hear me? Okay. The syllabus is also part of what you'll find on Moodle. This particular syllabus for this course will cover developmental changes in adolescents and their needs, adjustment issues. We're going to talk about the family dynamic, what goes on at home, and what are some different dynamics that the adolescents will be exposed to.
Can people read the mic?
Yeah, like this. Can you hear me like this? Can you hear me better like this? Sorry, guys. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So we'll talk about biblical principles of pastoral care. How do we do counseling? Integrating psychology and theology. How do we bring in the Christian counseling as we speak with adolescents? Can you hear me at the back? Then you will learn the process of helping adolescents, the skills of counseling. So we're trying what we call micro skills, and dealing with common adolescent issues, as we will do case studies for anxiety, for depression, for drug addiction, for low hope that you will learn is that you'll be able to identify significant developmental changes that take place in adolescence and be able, knowing that, to deal with adolescents in a way that connect them better to you as you connect them better to the Lord. Okay? If I use this, will it cause any problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Echoes the sound.
It echoes this. You can still hear me through this, by the way, because it's quite strong. But if you have trouble hearing me, please let me know. You'll also be able to analyze the behavioral characteristics of adolescents with reference to external issues or pressures, as well as in terms of what's going on inside of them and what's going on outside of them, and you'll be able to analyze those and use them again for the benefit of connecting them with the Lord. You're going to design a pastoral care strategy for youth ministry that meets a range of needs. So if I tell you one of the needs of adolescents to feel significant, well, what do you think? Here's a question for you, for the floor. What do you think you could do in youth ministry that's going to make a youth feel significant? What would you need to do in the ministry to reach that need? What are some of your thoughts? Right. So the idea you read something or you start with something and feel good. So this is what we would like for you to learn. I learned there is a need. How can I meet that need? And one idea that will be discussed is how do we put them in ministries when they're still youth? Versus the other models, older models, is no, we cannot put youth in ministry. We have to wait till they're at a certain age and so on. Well, maybe the type of work you give them can be a different type of work, and nevertheless will still be value adding for the church and for themselves. So we'll talk about that. And then you'll demonstrate basic skills. You'll demonstrate basic skills in providing individual pastoral care. Forced participation textbook and in-class self-evaluation on skills, on counseling skills. So forced participation is attendance and reading, and the evaluation that will happen in your triad that I mentioned. Father Butros and his email, Father Bishoy and his email, and you'll find the list of topics by dates and speakers and the times that you'll be involved in doing so. Again, due dates, pay attention to those, and just a paragraph description of what the triad self-assessment or in-class evaluation will look like. Any questions on this course or anything I talked about so far in this course? Like emojis, you know, when you're online, you go like this. Yeah, that's good. At least I know you're alive. Okay, so today I'm going to cover social and spiritual development, and Abdullah Butros is going to come in and he's going to cover other aspects of development. So let's get right into it. So adolescence is a period in life that is both stressful and exciting. What makes adolescence stressful? What do you think? School. Yeah. You know, adolescence, I'll tell you this again later, but you know the age range for adolescence for we call adolescent age or stage? Any thoughts? Yeah, Natalie? 11 to 24, yeah, so that's not far. It's 9 to 23-ish. So believe it or not, what grade is people who are 9 years old? What grade? Yeah, believe it or not, it starts that early, especially why now they pushed it down to 9 years?
Back in the day, it was like 13 and above, or 11 or 12 and above. Because of what do you think has put a change, a pressure that changed younger people to actually express adolescent needs and adolescents? It's almost like we've made a change in their psychological development. You know what caused that? Social media, the internet, absolutely. Globalization, the impact on youth through social media. So that's the stressful piece, but it's also exciting. Why do you think it's exciting? Yes, they feel they're getting older, so it's exciting to grow and feel the next level. Yes. What else? Yes, peer pressure, curiosity, they're learning new things. They're being allowed to do more things, right? What else? They're also now feeling things, right? And it's exciting, to feel attracted to someone, someone's attracted to you, and all that stuff. So both exciting and stressful. Um, Armand Nikolai, Harvard Guide to Modern Psychiatry, he says the most confusing, challenging, frustrating, and fascinating phase of human development is adolescence. Um, your own adolescence was different than that of everyone else, even though there were similarities amongst your generation because adolescence depends on factors that are common, but your personal experience is not going to be identical to someone else's experience. So, as much as we speak generally, you have to understand we also deal with people individually, right? Or else we could be stereotyping or labeling, and you'll miss the mark when you're working with people individually, right? But let's talk about some of the factors that could influence one's adolescence. Look into your own. What may have influenced you growing up as a youth or a teenager or a young adolescent? What are some of the factors? Family. Very good. Family. Community. Those are the first two on my list here. You pass this course. You can leave now. Yes. What could influence one's adolescent development? Yes. Faith, religion, absolutely, or conflicts of religions. Yes. Adolescents who grew up in Iraq or grew up in Lebanon, or those who are growing now in Lebanon or Israel because of the war and it being politicized and religiously based, are going to have a different type of view as adolescents than someone growing in North America, right? What else? Education. I mentioned now a few countries, so country of residence. What else? Yeah. Financial, so yeah, economical and financial, circumstances. What else influenced your adolescent personally now? So think now individual rather than global or common. The movies you choose to watch. Okay, good. The music you choose to listen to. Good. What else may have influenced individuals differently? Friendships that they make. Exactly. That's absolutely true. Personalities, temperaments. You're born with temperament, right? You're born with certain things that are unique to you, and that's internally going to interact with external factors to influence your adolescent development. So it is shaped by events also in the world at the time. What's going on in the world? What's the most recent example of an adolescent that was heavily impacted by something global? The pandemic. That's right. We have a generation of grade 9, 10s, and 11s. Back then, they were 9, 10s, and 11s, and the junior highs that have not actually lived their adolescence socially connecting, but they were doing it virtually. Do you know someone who has reflected that? Yeah, of course. So today, teenagers live in a teenage culture that is radically different from teen cultures of the past. And the reason that is, you already said it, is because today's generation, or these last couple of last two, 3 generations, have been impacted differently than, let's say, your parents' generation. The difference between your parents' generation and yours or the younger ones is what? Social media. Social media, and God knows where this is going to what is it going to progress to. So the young person, they move away from dependency on the parents and the protective confines of the family towards relative independence and social productivity, being socially connected and productive and less dependent on the parents. And this tug of war that exists, and you've experienced it in your adolescent, I experienced in mine, where I want to be more independent and my parents are kind of overprotective, or they're worried about me trying to be on my own. And there is this struggle to become more and more independent. And it doesn't mean independent as in like, hey, you have a curfew at 10 p.m., someone else has a curfew at 5, yeah, right, a.m. No, it's not that. That's possible. But how about dependence and independence of feelings and emotions? Some people could be living far away from their parents, but they're so intertwined with their parents emotionally. We call this enmeshment. So I cannot make a decision unless my parents are okay with it. I cannot, move on and do this unless I check with my parents. Or if my parents are not feeling good or they're down or upset, I am also down and upset. I'm not able to do my work and my studies. And this is called emotional dependence or emotional enmeshment. So this is a significant change period, a lot of change. Delta? You can call it the delta age in one's life. Many things are deltas in adolescence. So for example, what is changing? What do you think is changing in adolescent years? Hormones. That's changing. Yes? The brain structure, the size of the brain, the structure, it's changing. What else is changing? Your interests and priorities. Yes. What else? Emotions, the feelings are changing. We keep telling people don't connect so heavily or so much with someone else in dating and so on when you're young, because your feelings are going to change later. There is a reason, not a specifically religious reason, but there is a psychological reason why we say that, because your feelings are going to change later on. You may be very surprised later on as to how you feel. What else is changing? Yeah. Your environment is changing. You're moving from one school, elementary, to high school, and high school, you're going into uni, and the life there is so open and so different than anything else. You miss the most obvious. Yes, physically you're changing. The most obvious one. So many also life determining decisions. Believe it or not, although we all have choices in Canada in terms of our careers, but the main choice for your career happens when? In high school, yes, for the majority, and some within university, right? But that's a life determining event. Like you're going to be deciding what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you are in your adolescence years. So lots of deltas. Okay, there are 3 periods of adolescence: pre-adolescence, middle adolescence, and post-adolescence. Pre-adolescence starts at the age of 9 or 10 and continues for at least 2 years or so. Middle adolescence is aged between 14 and 18. So those are your high school years. So high schoolers are middle adolescents. And then you have post-adolescence, also known as late adolescence or young adulthood. And those are the years, late teen years, 18 plus, and early 20s, up to about 23 or so. So, what's your name at the back in blue? Hero, close the door, please, if you don't mind. So, let's talk about impact on social development. What impacts the social development of adolescents? So, we have physical changes. Physical changes have social and psychological implications. The fact that the body parts are changing, that impacts the social development, how adolescents connect socially with each other. The teens, they feel awkward. They're very self-conscious about their body and their body image, and they're usually dissatisfied with their physical appearance. This is the age when peers in locker rooms at school are very conscious of the way they look because that's where you take off your clothes, right? And one of the things in Canada is you know in gyms and in lockers, people are naked. You know, like you won't find this in Egypt, you won't find this in Afghanistan, but you find it in Canada. And so people are very conscious of body parts. Um, and sometimes that's concerning for some teens because of their self-reflection on their physical appearance or comparing with each other, comparison. And also take it out of the locker into Instagram and social media and how people post a picture and look at how many likes and hearts and all that stuff, emojis that have been put on their picture versus their friends, for example, or their storyboard versus someone else's storyboard, and so on. There's also peer influences and pressures. Um, so the insecurities of shifting into middle school or high school, it's a new change. So there are insecurities. Am I going to survive this or not? And usually the biggest influence there is peer and how peer treat me, bullying, and so on and so forth. The development of close friendships. Adolescents have the tendency for hero worshiping. So they idolize certain people and worship them. Crushes on people of the opposite sex, and sometimes even people who are experiencing um, issues with their gender nowadays, as you can hear. So there's even a lot of pressure now on adolescents thinking, do I have an issue with gender? Because it seems like gender is being redefined in society, right? So you can imagine the added pressure of that by itself on people who are according to Eric Erickson, he said that this stage is about crisis, personality, or identity crisis. Who am I? So add to it now another piece of gender, some you have that, and other piece of why do I not have someone who likes me, or why is it that I'm not attracted to someone? And it's just sometimes it's just a stage, but a lot of what's going on in society today is actually, in a way pushing people to think, well, maybe if I don't have feelings towards the opposite sex, then maybe I am not heterosexual, or maybe I am asexual, and so on and so forth. And so there are all these things coming together and adding more pressure on an adolescent finding out who he or she is. And that adds to the identity crisis. Dependence versus independence. I spoke briefly about that. Am I dependent on my parents? Is that changing? And here you see a lot of the guys and girls, sometimes they're tough on their parents. They don't mean to be tough or rude, but it's stemming from a cry to be independent. I want to find out that I can do this without anybody else's approval. They're also They developed abstract thinking, not just concrete thinking as kids. You know, as when I did the Sunday school liturgy with the little kids, and I would say, for example, you know, our life is like a boat. And I get a little kid says, Abuna, that's not true. My life is not a boat. A little kid like this, because they cannot think abstractly. They think concretely. One time, as a servant was saying, Christ is in our heart, the pre-JK. Christ is in our heart. He is so big and he's in our heart. And one of the kids told him, like, how come I can't see him? If he's so big, he must be, you know, showing in you somehow. In their mind, Christ is in your heart. He's little and small and hidden. But you said he's so big. How come I can't see him? Because they cannot think abstractly. Adolescents begin to think abstract. So they're also very self-critical. A lot of the negative self-talks that you may experience later on in your life, they come and start when you are an adolescent. And it's what you tell yourself. So adolescents generally are very self-critical, and they project that self-criticism on others. So instead of, like, they don't like, for example, the way they talk, but they'll tell their parents, hey, I don't like the way you talk to me. Or I don't like the way, and they project it on their friends as well. So a lot of their self-criticism, instead of working through it, obviously if they're helped, they can, but if not, they begin to do what? Project it onto others. They begin reflective thinking. So this is a good time socially when they think of themselves as part of a group and how unique they are and how similar they are to others. And we should be helping adolescents to think both ways. You're unique in certain ways, and you are similar to others in other ways. And this is very important as they grow to understand the I versus we. They're part of a clique or a clique, and so, but they're also unique. And they also, we can classify them into 4 types of personalities. I just want to dive a bit deeper into this. One is called the interactives, or the interactive personality. Almost 50% of your teenagers or your adolescents fall into interactives as a category. They're highly personable. So as I say this, you can reflect on yours and tell me if that's you or not. And you can say, I'm 50% this, I'm 25%, I'll present 4 of them. Interactives, almost half of teenagers, they're highly personable, they're focused on relationships, and they're very sensitive to others. They live with a relaxed approach to problem solving, and they tend to be hospitable and minimally influenced by stress. Those are called the interactives. The second type of personality is called dynamos. They're about a quarter of the teen world, and they are aggressive, focused, and they're driven. They're above average in productivity. They're effective problem solvers. They also can irritate others with their high energy, competitiveness, and self-assurance. And then you have your stabilizers. About a fifth of adolescents are stabilizers. They are marked by consistency, loyalty, predictability, thoughtfulness, and they can also become very rigid and lacking in creativity as they're at the edge of their personality. And then you have your evaluators. Those are the smallest of all in adolescence in terms of numbers, and they like details, and they insist on accuracy and completeness. They tend to be perfectionists who put high demands on themselves and others. So which one do you think you were, or you are? And it doesn't have to be entirely one, but we're pushing the argument, so we're pushing it. So tell me which one of the 4 you think you are and why. So you have interactives, you have dynamos, you have stabilizers, you have evaluators. Yes. Evaluator. Yes, okay, yeah. How about others? Philip? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Hmm. Dynamo. Yeah. Competitive as well. Okay. How about others? Any interactives? Yes. Yeah. So you had three, four people put their hands up. Yeah, the 50% of people. Anyone was stabilizer. Stabilizers, they are marked by consistency, loyalty, predictability, thoroughness. They're thorough in their work, and they can be a little bit at times rigid and lacking creativity. Yeah, yeah. A couple of people, three people. Yeah. Okay. So the next piece is interpersonal changes. Very simple. There are changes in the relationship with others, interpersonal. So there is a change between the relationship with their parents and the dynamic there. And you see, teens are, they have chores to do at home. Sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't, and that could create conflicts with the parents. They want to go out, they want to stay up late. Now they're more with their friends than with their parents, and this is creating anxiety in the parents and so on. There's also interpersonal relationships between them and their friends, and the drama that takes place amongst friends, and how they get hurt with it, and how they evaluate themselves based on what's going on. There is their relationship with their servants, with their teachers, with authority figures in general, and then they push. The teen is trying to find their identity against a background. And what's the background that teens have? Parents or family, church, authority figures or friends and friends. Like, they're trying to define who they are either by being similar to their background, but often by being different. Okay? So when you see someone, I remember this very clearly. I was doing opening service many years, 20 years or so back, 20 years, in the small church, and one of our teens who was very dedicated to the church. I didn't know much about what was going on in their lives and so on. Came in and had one of those earrings, and we're talking 20 years ago. And when I saw the earring, I was like, "What's going on? What's happening?" Like, I'm telling you honestly, I'm letting you in. In my mind, I was shocked. This is someone who was a deacon, attending weekly, like every activity, everything. And that Friday, he comes with an earring, and I was so upset. And I had not taken YMCP, so uh, he did one little small talk with the person behind him and asked him to leave. Of course, he was very close to me, so I went later and I connected with him and we went horseback riding together. So things worked out later. But I'm just telling you, and I had not taken YMCP. That's why YMCP is important, because it opens people's eyes to, you see something like this, hold yourselves in, like, be in control of your emotions and feelings. The teen is trying to do what? What do you think he may have been trying to do that night? He came with the earrings, and it was one of the big stud earrings, and he sat right in front of me. What do you think he was trying? What was he saying? Huh? I'm rebelling. Only when I got to know the background of what was happening in his world did that completely made sense to me. And if he would have done more, I would have understood it. You see that? So sometimes some of the things that people do at that age, you cannot just jump at it. You have to sit back and say, okay, something behind this is going on. This rebelliousness is a statement. He's making a statement because something is going on in his life. Family stability. But even as they move away from parental control, teens need to feel that their environment at home is stable. So you see, they rebel against their parents, but they never want their parents to rebel against each other. They want the home to be stable. They want to know that the parents are okay and good, because lack of stability at home makes a teenager who's now experimenting with the world trying to find stability elsewhere. So that's important. Often teens feel confused, anxious, and angry when there's a lack of parental guidance. So you think, oh, if my parents were like so easy or easier, like the parents of my friend, and so on. People say that all the time. But actually, teens do not like loose parenting. They actually want to know some guides and they want to push against them, but they want to have the guidance. They want to have the predictability and they want to have the stability both at home as well as at school. So tendencies. They want to be treated as adults. They have the tendency to discover and observe. So you want to consider when you do later on activity planning with Tamer, who will be teaching that course, you want to think, what can I do in youth ministry? What programming can I have so that they can discover things and observe things? We cannot be spoon feeding the teens their faith and what we can show them how to observe and learn, how to discover and learn. That's an important component because they have the tendency. They have tendency towards self and ego. So be careful when you comment on somebody's behavior and so on. Unless you have a strong relationship, like really what saved me with this guy is how strong we were connected. But I still had to apologize. And I still had to do repair. But imagine we were not close, or imagine God did not give us the grace to repair. This boy could have stopped coming to church. And I know of people who have stopped coming to church because one time, Sayyidina was telling me the story. One time, this person was coming to church, and uh, in Egypt, back in the day, we're talking many, many years, like probably when I was little, he was little, or he was even born before me. And he was slapped by a person in the church. And as a child, he said to his parents, I'm never coming back to this church. Many years later, as a young adult, he decided to break his promise and come back to church. He came to church, and one of the servants spoke to him roughly. He stepped out of the church, and until now, he never came back. We impact people. We therefore have to understand that. And he was a little kid, and then in his teenage, and ego and self, very important. So we have to be very careful the words we use and how we talk to youth. Even when we're trying to guide them, we have to do it with positive expectations, not negative expectations. They have tendency to laugh, towards humor. So it's good to have a humorous time and a joking time, like a fun time with youth. And also they have the tendency to rebel, criticize, and to reform. It's amazing when we do student councils in ministry. You know, I've done it a few times, and the stuff they think about and try to make a change of is great. Our problem is we're not consistent. And maybe one of the programs that you guys will design is how to be consistent in involving youth in their youth ministry. Youth informing their own ministry because they can be very reforming and quite innovative. Okay, getting to understand teens, I want to give you 4 gadgets, like the car gadgets. You know, what are the gadgets in the car used for? What are they useful for? Think of those guys. Tell me, what are they useful for? It's a simple question. I know you have the answer, but I'm wondering if you understand what they're used for. They could be checking your speed, yes. So they tell you something about the velocity of the car. Okay, but what are they for generally? So that's the speedometer specifically. But I'm asking about the category of gadgets in general. What do they tell you? It's what? Sorry? Gauging the car's performance. So these are windows into something that's happening in the car that you cannot necessarily see. So gadgets are your outside windows or outside indicators of what's going on the inside. So there is a gadget of anger, a gadget of anxiety, a gadget of shame, and a gadget of sadness. I brought those 4 because those are what they call primary feelings. So, gadget of anger. what's it telling you going on the inside of the adolescent car, adolescent self? If someone, if the adolescent is angry, I'm going to give you a hint here. What do you think is happening to their goals? Sorry. So the goals are not being met, or the goals are blocked. How about if the adolescent is anxious, if the gadget of their anxiety is going up? What's going on to their objectives and goals? Yeah, exactly. Unknown or uncertain. How about if the gadget of shame? We said anxiety. How about the gadget of shame? Their goals are avoided. Can you tell me more about this? I'm not clear on avoided. Right. For what reason? You're right. For what? Why are they too scared? What's happening to their objectives? Thank you. It's almost like they're afraid they're gonna fail or they have failed. You know, when you say, I am a failure, I am not good, versus I failed. What's the difference between I am a failure and I failed? Although I don't like the word failure, and I tell people don't use it because the word is heavy. But what's the difference between I failed and I'm a failure? Exactly. If I am a failure, then everything I will do will end up being a failure because I'm just working through me, that I'm a failure. I'm the machinery of failure. But no, I'm not a failure. I may have not done well with this, but I'm not a failure, right? So that I am a failure or I failed, my goals have failed, brings about shame. What do you think then sadness is about? So anger, goals are blocked. Anxiety, goals are uncertain. Shame, goals are failing or failed, or I'm a failure. Sadness, goals are think when someone is sad, it's because they have not achieved, so they have lost the goal. Why did I show you this? Because you will see adolescents when it comes to negative thoughts or negative feelings. Obviously, they're positive ones, but you'll see them angry. And when you see someone's angry, don't get stuck with the anger. Adolescents, don't get stuck with their anger. Always think, oh, maybe they wanted to achieve something, but it's blocked. They want to go on a trip, but registration is closed. They're angry and they will act out their anger. Or maybe they're anxious. Well, why are they anxious? Why do we have more adolescents? 25% of the Canadian adolescent population is anxious because there are many uncertainties. And same with the shame and the sadness. You don't want people to be high on these. You want them to be able to self-regulate their feelings, but definitely not this one. This one is a no. Okay, so let me move on to spiritual development and then I'll get you into groups. This is actually groups. So we're going to form groups of 4 to 5. So 3 groups. So can we go with numbers? Just go 1, 2, and then 3, and then 1, 2, and 3. And remember your number. Okay? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 2, So what one is Rana, Philip, you're two, and you are three. Yusuf is three. So I want you to go into your groups. Group one can come somewhere here. Group two can be in the middle, and group three can be at the back. You can do that now. So group one, where's group one? This is group one. Very nice. Group one. If you bring in a chair here and sit together as groups, like, or turn your chairs, like sit as a group, like face each other. Group two in the middle face each other, and group three at the back face each other. Yeah. Now I'm just gonna introduce this. People online can work online with this. So how many people we have online? 4 people. So guys online, welcome. And I wish I could see you, but I don't see you. You do see me and you hear me. So I would like you to have a discussion online. Is that possible, Ayman? They can talk online? Okay. So group online is going to be group one. So group one, you are going to take Psalm 78. So take notes of these things. Sorry, my bad. Group one is going to take Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 6. So Deuteronomy chapter 6 for group one, with a focus on verses 6 to 9. You probably want to read a few verses prior to 6 just to get a context. Second group is going to take Psalm 78 with a focus on verses 1 to 8. Group 2 is going to take Hebrews chapter 11, verse 29 to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 8. So group 3 is Hebrews 11, verse 29 to Hebrews 12, verse 8. That's group 3. You got that? Okay. So first group, now we're looking into spiritual development. We spoke about social development. There will be more on your readings. But now we're looking into spiritual development. How does spirituality develop in adolescence life? In other words, how We talked about social development, now faith and spiritual development of adolescents, and really this is the part where you come in and teach the rest of the class. What have you learned from these passages? So let's take Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 6. What was the setting? And I'm going to ask you to take the mic because we have people online. Group number 1 online, can you hear me? 25 seconds. Okay, we'll give them 25 seconds. So I want to include and invite, encourage the group online to participate. So if you have anything you can share from the group number 1, what did you discover to be the setting in Deuteronomy chapter 6? So anyone online can talk and we'll hear you. Did they do the work? Group number 1 online. What is the setting of Deuteronomy chapter 6?
Hi, Buna.
Hey, Andrew.
Sorry.
No, I won't talk. I'm learning. So go ahead.
I said I'm Buna Pshoy. The setting we were saying was Deuteronomy. This was right after Exodus. They were receiving the 10 commandments. They were continuing to receive more commandments, and the first commandment is repeated again here. Hear, O Israel, the Lord God, the Lord is one. You should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. So it's highlighting the greatest commandment there. God is repeating it, and that is the setting, the immediate setting. And
that is correct. It is right after the Israelites received the 10 commandments. Group now, number 1 here in person. Do you have anything to add to that? Setting wise is good. They have just received the 10 commandments. People, and they just received it, or they received the 10 commandments for the second time. Group online, what do you think? First time or second time?
the second time.
The second time. So that's why we call it Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy means like, hey, hear it again, listen to it again. Okay, so here we have the people of God just received the 10 commandments for the second time. And what is happening with Moses? Again, group online, you can jump in, or group in person, you can jump in. What is happening with Moses? Let me tell you, Moses, he knows he will not enter the promised land.
Oh.
And so you have the spiritual leader who is about to disappear. And so the concern now is, how will the next generation keep the faith? And that's why he speaks here about development. So what do you notice about key strategies and ways of faith development in the new generation? I'll hear one from the in-person group and one from the online group. So online group, prepare yourselves. To lead by example. That's right. Where did you get this from? Which part in the readings?
We got it from binding it as sign to your hand, having it in front of you at all times to lead by example for those that are seeing. So if
Good.
you use the adolescents, they're going to be listening to you looking at you. So whatever you do is going to impact.
So one of the strongest way, most effective way to affect spiritual development in the next generation is for the older generation to lead by action. You will know a church that is strong when people can pinpoint these role model servants that are life examples that people learn from. What else? So online. Give me another key strategy for faith development.
If you allow me guys, حللني يا ابونا.
طب يا ابونا قبل ابي.
هديك مقبلة يا ابي. I'm a student here يا ابونا. I'm learning. I'm trying.
Abuna, you're always a teacher, Abuna. Teach us.
No,
Tell us, please.
thank you, Abuna. I think in verse number number 7 says, you shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. So I think this is a very clear message to us, Abuna. The most effective way just to attract our youth and the kids to the church is not only the activities. It has to be started with the commandments, with the spiritual talks, to show them Jesus Christ first, and then we can get them into the church through the activities. So because
Thank
it's
you, Abuna.
yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Abuna. So Abuna is focusing here. He says it's not just the activities and what they do, but even through the activity, there has to be a delivery of the core spiritual message. And you learn a lot from Tamer again when Tamer does his course. There has to be a purpose for every activity. Oh, let's go do a barbecue. Or hey, let's go and do this. Yes, and it's all spiritual, Abuna, because it's all going to bring them to church. But is it going to bring them to church as a community center? Or is it going to bring them to church as a spiritual community? That's very important. So here, I want to give a label to what Abuna just said. Not only is it the spiritual aspect, but spiritual saturation. You see, he says to them, impress them on your children. Talk about them when they do X, Y, and Z. Make symbols of them that are visible. Write them in invisible, repetitive places. This is called spiritual saturation. Not overload, but saturation in the sense that you do an activity, there has to be a spiritual message there, a goal. You come to church and there's prayer, it's not just about, oh, I prayed, but there has to be a spiritual, you have to help the adolescent make the connection between what is being done and their life with God. At that age, you have to make the connection for them so that they can later on make connections in their own lives between everything that they do, work related, study related, and their spiritual connection with God. God is in every part. God is not confined to the church. God is in your life everywhere you go. This is what this is saying. Spiritual saturated education. Very good. Group in house. Yes.
Second point is to give them practical advice and practical things to do, and that comes from verse 7.
Mhm.
It says, you shall teach them diligently to your children. So teaching them, we've already spoken about by example, but also to give them practical advice that they're able to use in their day-to-day lives.
Practical advice. Are people online, are you hearing when Rana just spoke? Did you hear her? Just say yes if you did. Yeah, good. Okay, I know there probably is more. Online, do you have anything else you wanted to add on spiritual development from Deuteronomy chapter 6?
Oh, well, did mention one more point, Tabuna. He talks about yani, diligently to your children, so and also the involvement of the household in that faith development process as well.
Yes, the church has to care for the family because the family is the crucible where the early spiritual development happens. So then we have to also care for the family. That's why in youth ministry, we think of it as a tripod. One side is the youth, one side is the church, and the third side is the family, the home. Okay, now group number 2, let's get into Psalm 78. Psalm 78. Go ahead. What is the setting of Psalm 78?
Yeah, so the setting from the context of what's happening is regarding the Moses with his people in the desert, and specifically we taught that there was the story of when they were asking for the manna, and it rained down from heaven.
Yep. Okay. Very good. Is it a prayer? Is Psalm 78 meant to be a prayer or something else?
No, we were not really picking up on prayer, but it was very prophetic.
Prophetic.
Yes.
Another word of prophetic is sermon-like.
Sermon-like.
Exactly. This is what's to be read, and people will learn from it. So very good. Prophetic. Mhm. Okay.
So then, like, the second question was,
Key points in faith
in
development.
faith development. So one thing that we found was that in verse 7, it really discusses the reassurance due to God's favor. And we also noticed the common theme of the grace and mercy of God, which showed up multiple times, that even when the Israelites, they made mistakes, they left God, he still accepted them and he let them return to them. And mostly this is all driven by the fact that the trials and the tribulations that the Israelites went through when they were in the desert, this ultimately strengthened their faith through their experiences with the Lord.
And this is going to tie very nicely with Hebrews, because it is through the experience of life that includes tribulations that I can help an adolescent make sense of all these as they connect with God. Right? You see that? And that God is not aloof or indifferent when it comes to what their suffering looks like or their pains and so on, but He's right there, and God is active in the life of His people. Very good. So you almost teach faith through life experience. And also there's a part, I don't know if you got it or missed it. Do you want to say more?
I think we discussed a couple more. We talked about verse, I think it was 34. How like even at the end, they like God gave them, they kept giving them chances, even though they weren't being the greatest. And then at the end, He could have it says when He slew them, then they sought Him and they returned and sought Him to speak for God. Like at the end, they came back and like God accepted them with open arms.
Very good. Also, I want to add to this. So there's a lot of what you talked about has to do with part of your faith is hope, is that you know you have a way back to God. Is that important for adolescents?
Yeah.
That's extremely important. Why? Because what's going to happen in the adolescent years specifically is what's going to happen? They're going to make mistakes, right? They're going to stray. But it's so important that part of their faith development is that you're in that faith where there is a way back to God. There's hope. Philip, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I also want to add on another analysis. In verse 6, it talks about passing on the things that God has done from one generation to the next.
How? What are they expecting the next generation to be compared to the older generation?
Like more knowledgeable.
You hear this?
Yeah.
And more hopeful and stronger in their faith. You hear this? It's not, oh, we're good with our faith, and then the next generation will be weaker. Isn't that what sometimes we observe in the land of immigration? When the churches were settled first, they're very strong, always going to church, and then their children, and then their grandchildren, gone. What Psalm 78 is saying is, deliver the faith to the next generation in ways that they become stronger than you. Right? Look at what's happening today. I mean, when I first came here, we did not have even tasbihah. One or two people would pray tasbihah. Now, the second and third generation, look at the tasbihah. What's going on? They're far better than we were. You see that? Again, people serving in leadership. I'm just giving you an example. The next, second, and third generation, we must pass on the faith to them through experience and through hope, but in such a way that they become stronger than the previous generation. Yes.
Yeah, I remember like one time he told me like doubt comes from a lack of knowledge. So when you pass on knowledge, like sacred knowledge, it helps build a foundation for their faith because they know. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Third group and last group now, Hebrews 11:29 to 12:8. People online, if you ever want to add or ask any question, you are with us in class, so please just put your hand up and Ayman will notice it and will tell us that you want to say something or share something. Go ahead. Hebrews 11. What's the setting? Why is St. Paul writing? Yeah.
St. Paul is writing. So first of all, he's speaking to the Jews.
Yes, he's speaking to the Jews.
So I did a little bit of research on the history, and what happened is that the Jewish Christians at that time, they were starting to leave the faith and to go back to the synagogue and to do their Jewish worship.
Yes.
So St. Paul.
And why?
Because of their distrust in God and their like.
Why? What was happening to them? Persecution. They were going through a hard time. Okay, good. That's key because you're going to find out why. No.
And so St. Paul at this time, he decided to talk to them and tell them that he gave them many examples of people that they know in their, even in the Old Testament, they know them. And he gave them examples of how they stood strong and stood with God at this time, even in times of trouble. And each of these prophets that they looked up to or they knew, they all struggled. So with something, with a sin or with a war or something. So in this time, he gave them an example of how they overcame that with God.
Very good. So what's a key point about spiritual development from what you just said? How are we developing faith, or how is St. Paul suggesting that faith would be developed for people?
I think like looking back at like experiences of others or your own personal experiences, like God stood with me, or God stood with this saint, or God stood with this person in the Bible, or also like last year God stood with me in this exam, or God stood with me in this situation.
Good. So we're looking at, you know that Hebrews 11, which you didn't read, by the way, but Hebrews 11 is called the Hall of Faith. All these people, they remained faithful, and they remained faithful, waiting for the promise of the coming Messiah. But they all left. Any of them saw the Messiah? No, they all actually died. But they die in faith. So here, there's a definition of faith that must become integral in the way we develop the faith of our children. Faith is about remaining faithful to the end. It's very important. Faith is about remaining, it's faithfulness to God. It's passing on this notion that because you are growing in faith, you are enduring hardship. Because you are growing in faith, you are hopeful even though things have not yet settled. Because if we teach the other type of faith is, faith is if everything is going to be okay all the time. Well, when things are not okay, then they wonder, like, what's going on now? Now they begin to doubt, when actually St. Paul is saying part of the faith is being what? Faithful. And this is a piece we must teach. It is imperative that adults working with teens stress this aspect of faith, parents or servants, in a practical way by giving examples of people of the past. And maybe examples of past encounters where didn't things work out, even though not the way you thought, but aren't you okay? Aren't you better? Aren't things changing? And give them that from their own experience and the experience of others. Anything you want to add? This is excellent.
In chapter 12,
Yep.
and this is something I noticed immediately when I read it, he says, what verse is this? This is verse 5. And have you forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you as to sons? My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor be discouraged when you're rebuked by him. For when the Lord loves, he chastens and scourges every son whom he receives. And if you endure the chastening, God deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom a father does not chasten? For if you are without chastening, of which all have become partakers, then you are illegitimate, not sons. And basically, my understanding is, because he loves you, he's going to show you. He's going to, I don't know if rebuke is the right word, or
Well, rebuke when you stray. Rebuke when you are insisting on living a life that's going to destroy you.
Yeah, I find that as a demonstration that it draws you back to him.
That's the therapeutic. That's the reason behind the rebuking.
Yes, yeah,
Yes, it's never to punish you or to hurt you ever.
Yeah.
It's really to wake you up.
yes, yeah.
Excellent point. Thank you. Okay, so chapters to read. You look up for social and spiritual development in your book that you're going to take. And now we're very happy to have Abuna. We're going to take Abuna. Can you give us like 5 minutes just to break, grab a coffee, and just put your chairs back? And Abuna will take it from here. Stay in groups. You can